A big conversation, and yep, we're having some audio stuff, huh?
Well, it should be on right now. It looks like it's on. So if you're just tuning in, good morning. I got Dr. Aaron Chapa. We've had a lot of really good conversation so
Too
far
bad
this
none
morning.
of y'all heard any of it. All right, well, let's see if we can verify that we are back on audio. And but anyway, let's see. We give us a couple thumbs up if y'all guys can hear us.
Yep. Let us know. It's 9:05. This is Gardy with KHEA. Got Dr. Aaron Chapa here in studio. If you're taking the time to tune in, feel free to let us know. Molly says perfect.
Oh, yay.
The perfect audio.
Yeah, so sometimes you never know. What we were just talking about just a second ago, like your stress response just went through the roof, didn't it?
Well, a little bit, but maybe at that point, that message was only for the people listening on the FM.
Well, hey, and I'm glad that you are, so stay tuned in. It's just going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So Merry Christmas to all. I'm so glad that everybody's tuning in. This is Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, and I'm Dr. Aaron Chapa. We get on KHEA Radio every week from 9 to 10, and we just share a message. This month we're talking about the hustle and bustle, how the body deals with stresses, and how we want to reduce stress, how we want to build a tolerance against stress, and we want to learn how to be proactive in managing the stresses that come at us day in and day out, because that's ultimately what's happening, Gardy. I mean, is this we are dealing, and I'm seeing it more and more with my patient base than ever, that there are more psychosomatic issues going on with just the fear of the unknown, the wonder of what tomorrow may bring. Will 2021 be a better year than 2020? And are we going to make it 16 more days to the end of the year? And in what does it look like, to get through Christmas when you have to do most of your shopping online? And is the package going to show up on time? And there's just so many variables that drive stress already in the holidays that we've talked about, whether it's financial stresses or just travel stresses or planning, the end of the year stress. But let's take a deep breath. I was up this morning and yesterday morning, and it was brisk, 47 degrees here in the League City area where I'm at, and it was amazing. I just realized, and the sun keeps coming up. The sun keeps going down.
It's a miracle every day.
It's a miracle.
Yeah,
that's right. I love that. It's a miracle. and yet we freak out over, some of the simplest of things. And we were talking a moment ago about, like, if a molehill for you might be like a mountain of stress for me, and vice versa. And every one of us, although plagued with and dealing with time crunches, deadlines, different, opportunities that we're have to choose whether or not we're going to stress about it or just respond to it. And I think that's the message. If we have a strong, glandular axis, we can manage stress better. You see, when stress hits us, and I hate the word stress really, because what is it? What's stress to you?
Well, stress to me, I guess, just feeling overwhelmed, having this feelings that can just create uncertainty. I think, like, if there's a bunch of situations and you just like keep thinking about them, be like, I don't have the answer, and it just creates, like, I guess, this emotion in you where you just feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, you kind of start spiraling in your mind, and
scenarios.
It's right.
This is gonna go wrong. This is gonna go wrong.
And people don't realize, like a simple way to, like, get that to stop is to go pen to paper. What are you feeling? What do you want to feel? And what's holding you back from feeling like you want to feel? If you ask yourself those three questions, how do you feel? So acknowledge that you have stress. I talked about it a little bit last week. Sit with it for a moment. Like, let it come at you so that you can really get a feel for, is this an overwhelmed stress? Is this an angry stress? Is this a frustration stress? Is this, I'm just a little bit agitated or nervous? If it's the unknown, am I sad? I mean, am I sick and tired of being sick and tired? Am I sad? Name the stress. Sit with it. What are you feeling? And then what do you want to feel? When you start asking yourself these questions and you go pen to paper, your brain can't get creative as much, right? Mm-hmm. So when you go, and they say that whenever you go pen to paper, you can't even lie. Like, well, I'm feeling these things. I would like to feel these things. And these are the things that are making me feel overwhelmed. I'm stressed about my finances. I'm stressed about my faith. I'm stressed about my relationships. I'm stressed about the time crunches of life, the deadlines, trying to hit this and that, or I don't have this, or whatever. You start writing this stuff out, and then all of a sudden, by unloading that on a piece of paper, it is quite phenomenal how quickly, within 5 minutes, 6 minutes, that's just a physical act that you can control. And what's really happening is you're not allowing the stress response to get down into the brainstem, where you're primal and you're reactive. By asking these questions, you're keeping yourself responsive by staying in the cortical thinking brain. And when we're in the neocortex, we are thinking and we are asking questions that ground us. And this grounding allows us to solve problems and to solve challenges. And the brain loves solving puzzles. And so if you always look at the obstacles of stress as just that, an obstacle, we just happen to call stress. So whatever that stress is for you, if it's an obstacle or a challenge as opposed to a problem, your brain is more apt to jump in and resolve it. And so stress forces your body into adaptation. And over time, this can create, fatigue and different layers of imbalances if it's not managed. But typically, a stress comes, and then a stress what?
It'll go.
It goes, and it's not that big of a deal. But if the brain-body communication lines are not being managed right, and your adrenal glands, your endocrine axis isn't handling the neurological response to stress well, because maybe every moment of every day the best part of your day is waking up, and then the weight of the world crashes down on top of you and you haven't even sat up yet. That happens to people, and that is a real place that people live, whether it's their health or wealth or relationships or their spiritual purpose in life. There's something to worry about, guys. Isn't there? There's something to worry about. And there's a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and it's
That's
because
a good title.
it is. It's pretty phenomenal. And the guy that wrote it's from was a professor at Stanford, and it's got a real long last name with a Z, and I can't remember it at the moment, but it doesn't matter. And he is just basically talking that if we need to mobilize a stress response, your body's going to shut down certain systems of the body in order to maximize the stress response to your fight or flight body. So if you need to run for the hills, your blood is going to mobilize nutrients and oxygen and energy to your extremities so that you can run for the hills. If it's a fighting situation and you need to, claw your way out of the matter, you're able to fight the good fight, moving your blood into the parts of the body energetically where you feel that you can get out of that stress. But then the stress is gone. In the olden days, historically, we go out and we fight the saber-toothed tiger, and the saber-toothed tiger either wins and your stress is over, or you win and the stress is over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got, 30 days to, relish in your victory, and then you go out and do it again next month. But today, stresses are a little different. They're prolonged, and these prolonged stresses compounded by a nutritional deficit through the minerals, vitamins, and essential fatty acids we've talked about time and time again. Now the body's not adequately recovering, and so now the stress response in the body induces another type of biochemical stress. So the physical stress induces a biochemical stress that then drives your body to activate or in this case, deactivate longevity and vitality. Just the fact that if you're right now road raging, which if you're listening to KHEA, this is a positive radio station. We love Jesus, and we want you to feel the peace that surpasses all understanding, so know that. But if you feel rage right now, your arteries are hardening, and you're shortening their flexibility and pliability long term. And so unless that process is recovering and regenerating effectively, you're potentially shortening your lifespan for whatever is angry. So, if it's sirens and bright lights behind you right now and you're very angry, hey, man, just breathe
Yeah.
and calm down. I
Pull
hate
over.
that feeling. I hate it
You know,
myself.
so I don't get road rage. I just sometimes get like, okay, you know, you're going to try and cut me off or you're going to try and squeeze in. Like, there's a line here, you know, so I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to kind of not get angry about it, but I'm going to show you.
Yeah, well,
You know, does that
I
ever
think,
happen?
I mean, I think it does, and I think there's at different points. Like if you're at that pinnacle threshold point where you're on the verge anyway, it seems like that's when the devil really tries to like just go ahead and just seal the coffin, seal the deal. Like throw that last little straw on the back of the old stressed out camel, and it breaks. And then you slip off into primal state. So if you can keep yourself in your cortical brain. And that means your neurological system and your endocrine system, your pituitary hypothalamus, your thyroid, your adrenals, and your gonadal system are in check and they're communicating well, then your body can process, hey, so-and-so's, that person must be having a bad day. Why don't you just say a prayer for them instead of, cursing them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, look, dude, I have on 2 occasions just pulled out in front of somebody. Actually, there's another one.
Was
Maybe
it me?
Another one.
Was it me?
There might be more than 2. I'm sorry that I just lied.
Ever, yeah.
So, but there's several occasions that I just came to mind as I even brought that up to my recollect, where I literally, after the person gave me the 3rd degree and told me how the cow ate the cabbage, I'd said, bring it. I'm an idiot. I
deserve it.
I totally, completely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I ruined your day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I mean, this one gal, I just prayed for her. I said, Lord, be with her because I just completely stressed her plumb out. This one morning, I thought this guy was going to come out of his car at me, and I rolled my window down. I said, man, I don't want to be a stress to you. I mean, I'm glad you were paying attention because I apparently
Have you ever gotten out of your car?
No. God,
Oh yeah.
why?
Oh, totally. Me either.
I mean, I
would never do that.
Well, who's got that kind of time, right?
Me.
I mean, okay. I know people that are like that though. I
Yeah.
mean, they're ready to go to town, and I've been with people in the car. And it stresses me out for them to act the way they're acting. But that kind of stress is an indication that their glandular system is so short-fused that they slip down into that primal state, and their brain doesn't process how to get back into a reasonable, rational, logical, approach to, sometimes stupid happens, sometimes people are legitimately just ornery, but man, like, is it really worth?
Sometimes.
I don't know.
I remember,
Gardy.
Dr. Chapa, the first time that we did the cleanse at your office, you did a bunch of tests, like more tests than I had ever had ran on me ever. I felt like a science experiment, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that you found
Was
was
your stress response.
You're like, hey, are you kind of stressed out? I was like, well, I don't think so, but sometimes I could be. I could see like little things like setting me off of like things are supposed to be done a certain way, and I'm talking to somebody who knows they're supposed to be done a certain way. For whatever reason, they just don't do it a certain way. It's like, how many times have we had this conversation? That can be
And you're
coworkers.
ready to thump their skull.
A little bit. Yeah.
Well, what that test you're speaking of is called an orthostatic hypertension test, otherwise known as a Ragland's test. And you could do it right now in your house, not in your car.
Not while you're driving.
Not while you're driving.
Yeah.
But if you're at home and you have a blood pressure cuff, you could throw it on your arm, lay down for 5 minutes, chill out, and then take your blood pressure. Write down the systolic, diastolic, and pulse pressure, all 3 numbers. And then stand up and take your pulse again, or take your blood pressure reading again. And you want the top number, the bottom number, and the pulse pressure, all 3 numbers. And then you compare them. Well, it would make sense that if you're lying down, your blood pressure is going to be at a number, and then when you stand up, you've got to get blood to where? Your brain, your head, right? And so, therefore, there is a lot of biochemistry that goes into constricting those arteries, increasing blood pressure volume, and you should see an 8 to 10 point rise in each one of those numbers, even the pulse. And so, if the number for your top number, the systolic number, doesn't go up 8 to 10 points, it's an indication that your adrenal glands are not working like they're supposed to. Or let's say they jump up 25, 30 points. They're overreactive. That means your hair trigger. Anything today might set you off. Well, why might that be? It could be that you've been getting really bad sleep. It could be that you haven't been eating well. There's a lot of Christmas parties going on still, and maybe you got into too much sugar. Maybe your bowels aren't moving every day like they should be. You're like, oh, and maybe there's other circumstances that have you on heightened alert, stress response wise, and so you're hyperactive. You're constantly ready to fight or flight. And that's what drives that cortical brain down into your primal brain, where you start acting irrationally, illogically, or and wind up actually making a fool out of yourself. If that lower number doesn't go up 8 to 10 points, that's a sign that the kidneys are malfunctioning and not doing what they're supposed to do. And there's hormones released from the kidneys that regulate blood pressure. So we want to make sure that we see those numbers go up, and then the pulse pressure would indicate different heart activity stress. And so it's really cool, easy test that you can do in the privacy of your own home, and you should do it at home, not whenever you've fought your way to the doctor's office, so that they can tell you that you have high blood pressure and that you believe them. Because what if you got flipped off on the way or cut off on the way to the doc, and all of a sudden you go in, you're late, you have to now wait another 30 minutes on top of the hour that you already were waiting, and so you're a little angst about that. And there's all these different circumstances that drive that number up anyway. That's no place to get a blood pressure reading. You really, in order to diagnose even high blood pressure, is a morning and night reading in your own home over the course of 5 to 6 days. And that should be something that you take in with you to your primary or your cardiovascular specialist, so that you have real readings, so that whenever your blood pressure number at the dentist goes up, and your or at the cardiologist and it's up, you ain't freaking out, because you're like, well, I have white coat syndrome, and it's legitimate. You have somebody monitoring you. Now you kind of freak out a little bit, because nobody likes test anxiety. It's a version of test anxiety.
Yeah, it's somewhere you're not comfortable. Like you said, you're home, you're comfortable in your house, your room, whatever. But if you're at the doctor's office, it's out of your element, unless you're a healthcare professional and you're used to working in there all the time. Then you're out of your element.
I don't even wear a jacket, a white coat, and it still freaks people out.
Yeah.
And so I tell patients that when we do all those tests, hey, look, I recognize that you might have had a rough afternoon getting here, and whether it was work or drive over, whatever it was. Understand that we're not doing a blood pressure test per se. We're looking at the functionality, because even if your numbers are 160 over 90, even lying down, if they're that high, they should still go up 10 points. I mean, because you went from lying to standing. We got to get blood to your head. And a lot of times people will see that. And so that's just a cool little test that people can do. But, if we look at what stress does, it causes cotton mouth, stress. And why is that? So why does a person's mouth get dry whenever they're under a great deal of stress? Because their body is shifting into that fight or flight response, shutting off digestion. You don't need to saliva to help digest food. When you're, need to fight something or run as fast as you can, you need your blood flow, energy, in a certain department. You can digest that food, that picnic later, right? We look at other symptoms, the clammy hands, sweaty armpits. We start seeing the extremities start to kind of warm up. That's your body putting blood flow out there. You start seeing that rapid heart rate, that palpitations maybe. You start feeling the pounding and pressure in your ears. You start getting lightheaded and dizzy. Your body is trying to survive, not necessarily thrive. And so when you start seeing some of those other negative things that slow you down, you know that you've hit your fumes. You're like almost running dry on your stress ability management curve, and you're starting to see the crash.
It's like the Hulk,
and that's So ultimately, his problem was with what? He was always angry, right?
Yeah.
But Hans Selye is the stress guru. He's the guy that was famous for discovering the stress modulatory response. And when stress happens, whether big or small, however you react to it, that initial response is that alarm phase. Your body goes into managing. Is this a real threat? What do I need to do? And then it drops you down back into a normal range, and life goes on. But what tends to happen is people I see are living past the point where their blood pressure is high, when those numbers are spiking up too high, like 25 points or 30 points of going lying to standing, we start seeing those numbers drop or go or stay the same. And so if your blood pressure stays the same, you're in what we call a hyporeactive state or an exhaustive state where your adrenal glands are not really functioning like they're supposed to in order to help get you through the stresses of life. And if the stresses of life are going to continue to come and you're 50 and you got 30 more years of this, I mean, we've got to intervene. And that's where Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center and alternative medicine has just a great place, because there is no medicine to manage stress. You've got to nourish the tissues, and you've got to change lifestyle, and you've got to get people's mind engaged in the therapy of wellness and healing. Because if they have these symptoms ongoing and reaching for more drugs now becomes a more biological stress or biochemical stress, I mean, it doesn't solve the problem. And then you start seeing, I kind of, yesterday I was describing it as if there's a threshold and we get above a certain threshold and now we call that symptoms. If you go above the next tier of stress of threshold, it's disease. And so your body's just going to keep, the more depleted it gets, closer and closer to that threshold of disease and diagnosis that is typically managed with medications, but the medications are strictly that. They're just Band-Aiding the problem, and now the body doesn't have solutions on how to fix it. If we can get in there and look at the cell inflammatory response through our omega quant test, or if we can look at you, just listen to your story and let you get it out, that's a de-stress moment where people go, oh, I feel heard. I feel like I can actually I have a place where I can work people through the process. I had a guy yesterday, he just said, I just have a bad relationship with food. And so whenever I get stressed, I eat food. And I'm not stopping for a salad. When I'm stressed, I'm reaching for the junk food, the fried foods, the carb foods. And typically I just overindulge. Well, that's why they call it what? Comfort food. It brings comfort to us. And the reason it brings comfort to us is it activates your parasympathetic response digestively, and that is a calming sense. The problem is the stress comes right back and then stagnates digestion. And so now you got a brick sitting in your stomach, which now becomes another biochemical stress, and your body just fights this constant battle, tug of war, on how it's going to manage running from the grizzly bear or surviving through eating healthy, rich, nourishing foods. And it's a sad place to be, because today in 2020 I'm seeing more people dealing with a new type of stress that is like the unknown. It's like a fear of the unknown, or whether they call it that or not. And people come in and say, oh, yeah, life's pretty good. I'm not really stressed out. But yet they're working from home, so they can't tell the difference between work life and home life. And, and not only are they working from home, they don't get but a 20-minute lunch break because they say, oh, it's okay. Just go grab a sandwich, come back. And they just eat while they're talking on the Zoom call. Or they have their work environment's not set up conducively for stress management. They don't have an opportunity to get away from their work office, and so they're constantly battling, a new type of demand of work home life blending, and there's no balance anymore. And because typically, we're given more time, we are going to fill it with work, and we have to be very strategic in how we manage where we're going to put our efforts. And man, for those out there that are listening, if you have in your opportunity on a weekend to get you a little nap and catch up, it's okay. I mean, sometimes you just need to rest. But how often do we feel guilty if we take a break? And so guilt is another emotional stress that people are toting around that is just as powerful as you working too much or eating the wrong foods. So mental stress is what Scotty Walker calls first base. If you don't get the first base of emotional stress is under control, the stuff floating around in your head, then your ability to get rid of toxins that you're exposed to each and every day, or get rid of the byproducts that your body is, creating in the process of sustaining you, just your bioaccumulated waste management system begins to go off the rails, and now you're toxic as can be, and now you're sabotaging yourself. And if that be the case, and you're eating poor quality food, not enough good, rich, nutrient, minerally dense foods or essential fatty acid based foods, and you're getting more inflammatory foods. Now, even if you could digest it because maybe you were eating well, if you're in that fight or flight response from a toxicity perspective and an emotional stressed out perspective, digestion, as we talked about earlier, is shut off. And so this is, it's like a no-win situation, and then you'll start seeing your body break down because now your body can't get rid of these toxins, so it starts storing these toxins in the brain, which sabotages communication lines to all systems of the body. So the brain can't communicate to the hormones can't, and the nervous system can't communicate to digestion. Digestion can't communicate to detoxification. Detoxification, it becomes such a burden that immunologically you start to decline. And then you start seeing stress in your cardiovascular system, and you start seeing your body just wither away faster than it's supposed to. That's called accelerated aging. Nobody wants to be on that curve, I assure you, because that's where disease lives. That's where the uncomfortability of aging lives. And so if we can get people to take the bull by the horns by reading a book, taking a break, getting a siesta throughout the day. I'm still all for, by the way, Gardy, siestas. I mean, I don't know how we can bring those back, but I want, to incorporate napping in the afternoon.
I see some of your staff, they were saying, hey, take a nap, don't apologize. And I typed to them, this was a couple minutes ago, I said, while at work, ideally.
Well, while at work, that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, look, if you need it, I want to make sure we just need to figure out a way to, where are we going to put the cots? I mean, geez,
Yeah.
we're growing out of our shoes over there, so.
Yeah.
But I see what y'all are thinking. I feel like I got set up somehow.
You were talking about the accelerated aging. So the past couple weeks, I've had a lot of time just to sit, and I was watching a lot of documentaries, and some of them were people who are wrongfully convicted or spent time in jail for 18 years or 5 years, and then they get out, and you'll see how they looked at the beginning of the trial and everything, and then how they get out. The other thing is like the presidents. You ever see pictures like this is them going in 4 years ago, this is them coming out, or even like 8 years. It's like, man, that's a very stressful job, and that stuff really takes a toll on your body.
Yeah. And I mean,
accelerated aging
aging is a real problem. But you have to remember that anything your body can develop, it can also undevelop. And so in the state, I think there's always going to be a price that a person pays, right? Like, let's say that, in one of those situations you just described with those types of stresses, they might have had the longevity curve of 100, but maybe now because of some of those life circumstances, now they're only going to make it to 75. I mean, that's a real possibility. Or their productivity in the years that they've been given is just less because they've been now programmed for survival for so many years. And I mean, 4 years, 8 years, 18 years, that people are, I mean, at this point, I mean, we there's kids that are dealing with layers and levels of stress just because they're taking on the stresses of their home life, and I see stories and hear stories every day, and some of these stories make me want to go home and just hug my kids and hug my wife and just say a prayer with them and just let them know I love them and care about them, because I mean some of these things are sad. I mean life is sometimes going to trip us up, but how we manage those stresses, I think, is something that, in some respects, in many a case, more often than not, we have control over. So how are we going to deal with the stresses that are coming at us? Because obviously, we just spent some time discussing stress is coming, or it's here.
It's here, yeah.
And so, like, the way we manage those stresses is we want to make sure that we evaluate how are we sleeping at night. How many hours a night are we sleeping? Are we getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep? Are we waking up, evaluating, are we waking up at night to pee? Are we tossing and turning? Are we having hot flashes or night sweats? Are we having bad dreams? Is it taking us an hour to 2 hours to fall asleep? These are all indicators of sleep hygiene. And we can address and fix aspects of these so that your body is recovering and regenerating and your brain is getting all that it needs in order to from the sleep, so that you're waking up in a position for not accelerated aging but controlled aging and graceful aging. And then we look at different sensitivities when we look at what are you putting into your diet. So like I find a lot of times when I'm out of control, I try to control something. So for you, it might be you want to. Only thing I can control right now is I'm going to knock this pen off the table, and then I'm going to recognize, well, a pen doesn't belong on the floor, so I'm going to control that. I'm going to pick it up and put it back where it goes. For me, I've learned that diet is where I want to focus my energy and effort. I want to control what I'm eating, so I inventory a food record, see what am I putting in my body that could be inflammatory, that could be slowing down my bowels, that could be causing my body to ramp up the accelerated aging cycle more than the graceful aging curve, right? I want to make sure I stay on that path. So I look at the food. Am I getting into things that I know for sure, and I teach my patients, that slow down bowels? So like if you're eating bread, rice, cereal, pasta, at some point in time, 3, 4, 5 times a week, these things can slow down your bowels up to 37%, according to the combination for which you put it in. What if you're allergic to those foods? We do a KBMO test, a blood finger prick test that looks at 130 plus foods that are real, to your environment, real fruits and proteins and vegetables, and if these things show up, then we can start pulling some of these types of inflammatory markers out, which will then de-stress your digestive biochemistry so that you're eating now a less or a lower inflammatory food diet. So like some people know a Mediterranean diet is a low inflammatory response diet. A low FODMAP diet is a low inflammatory diet. Keto and paleo and low-carb living typically are anti-inflammatory style diets. And these low inflammatory foods help us manage the intestinal irritation. So one of the things I wanted to share with people, especially around the holidays and parties and things of that nature, I didn't bring them in today. I should have, but the Cataplex AC is one of my favorite products for cheating. So if you're cheating, there's 3 products that I use, and that's Cataplex AC. And what it does is it heals and restores the GI tract, decreases irritations and inside the GI tract, so that the swelling and the inadvertent sabotaging of digestion is less whenever you put that product in. So if you go out and you party it up, make sure that you're taking the AC all day, 2-3 times a day, and then that night before bed, 5. Take 5. Put some mucous membrane support, some immune support, because your digestive tract is your floating immune system. And if you got into sugar, a cookie and a Coke or something, all of a sudden you just sabotaged and paralyzed your immune system up to 8 hours. So, sodas and sugar pastries can create a immunological burden on your body. Then we use something called AF beta food, which will decongest the liver. We know that the liver is the giver and that it processes all the chemicals and pollutants that we get exposed to, the bad oils that a lot of these things are cooked in, that or the metals that is present as a preservative. And so we're going to help that liver process the stress. So again, you take 3 times a day and then 5 at bedtime. Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, Thymex, which will rotor-root, if you will, the lymph nodes and the high lymph areas, the sinus cavities, the inner ears, the back of the throat. Make sure that hyoid ring is stimulated so that your immune system and T cells are on high alert. While you just paralyzed your system, you're giving your body some nutrients to reboot. So now we're supporting your immune system at the high lymph level and the thymus level. Then we're de-stressing the liver, we're de-stressing the bowel, and your body's more susceptible to recover from that poison. People go, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, I just was explaining the physiology. Just take it. Just recognize that sugars are poisons. There's a book I'm about to start reading called Sugar Crush, and I love the one from Nancy Appleton, Lick the Sugar Habit. It talks about all the different facts that sugar destroys and ruins our health. And I know it's no fun to talk about during the holidays. This is some of people's favorite time of delicious eating ever. But, man, I'm just giving you some tools to manage the biochemical stress you're about to put on your body. Or we've got patients that are doing, our inflammatory reduction diet. It's a 10-day mini detox. We have a blood sugar reset diet. It's a 10-day blood sugar resetting protocol that helps the body through diet and supplementation to cleanse and work the digestive tract and the liver, which will balance out your stress response and your hormones. Why? Because if I take enough stress off of that system that you can control, you see, I can't control who wins this election, and I can't control the stresses of COVID. I can't control what your neighbor's going to do or think about you. You know what I mean? But I can control my attitude, my actions, and my way of living. And so the part of these ideas is giving people a tool. So you can email us for the top 14 inflammatory list at info@justlivewell.com, or we could probably post it in our chat log here on the Facebook stream. And remember that if the average American right now is walking around with 10 to 15 meals caked up inside of them, and I am convinced that people don't really appreciate or truly understand how much their bowels play a part in their energy levels, their mental clarity levels, their productivity levels. And so if you don't have any time at all, do a 5-day intestinal cleanse protocol that we have. You don't really have to change your diet all that much. It's 5 days and a lot of water, and you get to eat food while you're doing it. So it's pretty easy way to help draw trash out of your body. And it's a bentonite clay, activated charcoal, and a few other calming, soothing, restorative herbs to the GI tract that you could leverage and use as a tool. Having tools in your tool bag. So I gave you a cheat protocol, Cataplex AC, AF beta food, Thymex. I gave you some inflammatory foods to avoid, wheat, dairy, corn, soy, especially up to the holiday, right? So between now and holiday, Christmas, we eat clean. If you got a party coming up Friday night, eat clean up until Friday night. Remember the rule, 36 good quality meals. If you can't do that, man, find a number that you can do. I mean, it's okay if the number's 14, and then on your 15th, then you have a cheat meal. I mean, play the game. Learn and find what you're capable of. Just make sure that you're giving yourself some grace and you're giving yourself some push that you can press yourself to grow. Because if you can get a better relationship with how much consumption you bring aboard and the amount of food you put in your body, the amount of calories, recognize that some of those calories are sometimes foods, some of those calories are all the time foods. If you can start finding yourself being a little bit more intentional with the fuel that you're putting in and not just putting anything in your mouth, you will find yourself healthier in the next year, in the next 6 months, in the next 90 days. It's amazing how fast your body will turn things on and move you forward positively. And it makes me excited because people just don't realize that they have more control than they realize. So there's protocols we can build to help the sleep. And then maybe you just need the stress trio. I mean, you need your multivitamin, your fish oil, your multi-mineral, and then we bring in my adaptogen, my Mintran, and my Neviton. Well, the adaptogen is a conglomerate of herbs that is just phenomenal for restoring adrenal stress. So and the way you measure your adrenal stress is on 0 to 10 scale. If you're 0 to 10 scale, you're off the chart, or you're a 7, 8, 9, or a 10, you need this stress protocol. And adaptogen will help feed and nourish those adrenal glands to make sure that they're working like they're supposed to. And I've got patients that take this every hour because their stress is so high, because of the work demands, life demands that are put upon them. And then Mintran helps to calm the mind so that you don't drive off a cliff. We need you metaphorically on the road, right? We don't need you off the rails. We need your brain calmed down, just like we were talking about earlier. If you're slipping off into your primal brainstem area and you're not cortically thinking through the process, your brain can't find a solution or solve your medical mystery or your stress mystery. Mintran helps to calm the mind so that the body can regulate the speed at which information is coming at you. Because although we live in the information age today, I would call it the disinformation age, because we don't really know what is true. There's so much of it coming at us. There's books written on the power of choice, and that too many choices shut off our thinking capabilities just because we just don't want to play. There's too many opportunities. It's fascinating. And so we know that the disinformation age is something that's got to be managed from the mind down, the north to south. And then Nevaton, of course, helps improve bandwidth. It improves the ability of your mind to take on more tasks. Not that you necessarily should, but again, sometimes there's things we can control, and sometimes there's deadlines and stuff put on us and expectations that we can't control. And so something like Nevaton will help your body manage your ability to take on more in some of those seasons. A lot of these things, the stress trio is a protocol for the seasons of stress. Unfortunately, some of us live in the season of stress, right?
Just forever, yeah.
Forever. Mm-hmm. But there lies some of the challenges. Is there something nutritionally we can do? Is there something psychologically we can do? Is there something spiritually we can do? Is there something biochemically we can do? Is there something structurally we can do? You know, if you move right and think right, sleep right, poop right, pray right, celebrate right, live right, you will find more opportunity, and you'll be more optimistic, and you'll be more productive, and you'll have more of you'll be more in a place to lift those around you. Rising tides raises all ships. But if you're not moving right, thinking right, pooping right, believing right, and praying right, and moving your life forward, you're going to find yourself a little bit more pessimistic, a little bit more, run down, a little bit more like another day, Eeyore mentality, right?
Here's a comment. This is from Molly. She said, Nevaton allows you to handle the in-laws with grace. So can you take that as a preparation? Like, hey, I know this is going to be a stressful weekend, or there's a lot going on. There's, work's going to be busy, or the in-laws are coming in, or whatever.
Yes.
That's something you can do in preparation?
Yes, absolutely. There's been road trips where I knew it was going to be a rough start just based on how the morning got going. And by golly, Adaptogen, Mintran, Nevaton was a tool that, we used to make sure that, I didn't drive the family off a cliff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, again, I'm human, right? I mean, and there's only so much a person can tolerate before they kind of start cracking. But whenever you have a strong neurological axis, a strong endocrine axis, what winds up happening is you begin feeling like you can tackle challenges, whether it's self-induced or challenges put upon you from others. And so we have many other stress management programs and products, but these are just some of the ones that we love and trust and that we work with often. And, we just always want to encourage people, look at inventory. I mean, like food log. Dave Ramsey says to inventory where and what you spend your money on. The Bible says what you spend your money on is where your heart is, or some version of that, right? And, the same as what you eat is also some of what you're passionate about. And or if you overeat, or if you are just constantly going to pleasure foods, these pleasure foods oftentimes are sick foods. So you're feeding two camps. Are you going to feed health and wellness, or are you going to feed disease and destruction, accelerated aging, right? I want people to reach and use the tools at Living Well as a tool to eat real food, to think right, move right, poop right, pray right, celebrate right, live right. Get rid of those inflammatory foods. Make sure that you're sleeping like you're supposed to, so that your body can rest, recover, and repair in such a way that you're able to move forward, onward, upward, goodward, and Godward each and every day. And instead of being somebody that needs support from others via, your oxygen mask, so to speak, you're able to serve your fellow man, and you're able to serve people and see needs in others, and not just be stuck, trying to deal with your own stuff and unable to serve other people. And I think that happens when we have a healthy, strong neurological and endocrine system, and that helps our bodies manage stress. I mean, we're 2 weeks out from Christmas. We're 2.5, 3 weeks, or I guess 16 days from New Year's Eve, right? I mean, and then we're off to the races. I mean, the sun keeps coming up, the sun keeps going down. Ask yourself, how are you feeling right now? Sit with it, embrace it, and then ask yourself, how do you want to feel? Write this stuff out, and let your mind start giving you all the reasons how you can get out of how you feel negatively right now and how you could potentially feel it just by solving some of those problems. And don't judge the answer that it comes to you. Accept that that's what the Lord's putting on your heart to write down on a piece of paper. Write it down, and just write out as much as you can via a list. Let your mind start going, and you will find that you've got 5, 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 solutions right there that you can start making right now. And when you tune in to our show every week, we're always apt to give you tools that are simple and easy over and over and over again. And you'll hear a lot of, like, the stress protocol oftentimes is the same because we believe and have seen it work so many times with so many different patients that we can talk about it as like I don't want to say a one size fit all, because we have programs specific to stress that we build for people. But from a radio perspective, I don't always know who's listening. I don't always know what your circumstance and story is. So, and if I don't get an opportunity to work with you and hear your story, if Jennifer doesn't hear your story, Dr. Amber doesn't hear your story, we know that this protocol is something safe. If you're on cancer drugs, or if you're on psychiatric meds, or if you're on reflux meds, it doesn't matter what you're doing, this protocol will help support those key areas that we talked about earlier: your adrenals, the way they handle stress and manage stress, the way your brain manages and handles stress, and the way your nervous system deals with and manages stress. From the north to the south, we want to make sure everything's working good. And then last but not least, we want to always ensure people, especially this time of year, just to recognize, what does 1 Thessalonians 5:16 say? It says, rejoice always. Verse 17, pray without ceasing. And then 18, give thanks, for this is the will of God through Christ Jesus our Lord. And so are you living an attitude of gratitude? Are you, how's your prayer life? How's your lordship time? I mean, are you recognizing the reason for the Christmas season? Or are you really caught up in the gift exchange and the hustle and bustle that people speak to so often? We want you to remember prayer is a very valuable, powerful, wonderful gift that we've been given to use. And that's why, when anxiety hits, we have scripture that we can lean on. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart, your mind, and your soul through Christ Jesus. That might have been a little bit of an ad lib on my part, but that's Philippians 4, 6, and 7. And it is powerful, if we can start realizing that we have a creator that loves us and cares for us and doesn't want us to stress ourselves out over minuscule, measly matters, but wants us to get our heart right and our mind right, our mind's attention, our heart's affection on him. And this Christmas season is a time where we can kind of get back to it. Go through the book of Luke, listen to the Christmas story, make sure that you're getting your family around a table, like turn off the screens, walk away, from the social media, walk away from the news, and enjoy the season of life that we have together, because it is short. Even if it is with family extended family that you don't particularly like or love that much, man, what if you could like and love them? What if you could be a light of Christ to them? What if you could find a reason to give them something more than they got this year, because they've got it handed to them, And so always want to encourage people to keep pressing forward and know that anything your body can develop, it can undevelop. All life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition is and always will be the fundamental backbone to if you want good health or if you're going to get bad health. And so we just want people to recognize that you're in control more than you realize. And we just gave you some tools on how, through sleep, food allergies, and basic nutrient support and good solid sustenance and good solid spiritual prayer, in order to build a healthy immune response, build a strong stress response. And I just look forward to all of our season and time together with you guys. And a few just quick announcements before we wrap this game up today is we have a cool Zerona $50 trial session through the rest of December, and basically what that gives is to let you test it out. It's 40 minutes under our Zerona light. There's 6 different lasers that will target to a particular area of your body that we can get fat cells, which are hormone regulators, metabolic regulators, and unfortunately toxic stores that we can, but under the light, inside of 4 minutes, we can get the fat cells to begin to release toxins. And when we release those toxins, they begin to get rid of cholesterol, triglycerides, and toxic burdens that your body is carrying, and be redistributed in your body. Then through water and walking and moving and grooving, we can eliminate those toxins, and you'll see changes in inches. You'll see changes in the way your body manages your adjustments and the way your body manages your health because it's not carrying those stuck toxic burdens in those stubborn areas of our body that we can't get rid of, that we would like to get rid of. And then lastly, our detox, man. Can you believe we're about to rock Detox 2021?
I can't believe it.
I know, it's here. And at January 5th, Detox kickoff meeting at our office in League City, Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center. And we'll have more details, but mark your calendars for January 5th. And then our detox starts January 11th, and we'll have 3 different meetings, and the detox meetings will be the 12th, 19th, and 26th. So we're really excited about taking people through the detox this year. We have great expectations for a fantastic run, and we're just looking forward to as many people that want to start their year off right. Remember, if detox isn't a part of your 21st century healthcare plan, you are missing a true blue piece of your health puzzle, and we want to make sure that you learn why you need to incorporate it, why we talk about 42 days a year of detoxification, so that you can take the bull by the horns and make sure everything's working, firing all 8 cylinders, so that your life can continually go onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. So God bless you all today. I hope that everybody has a fantastic and lovely Tuesday. If there's any questions, Gardy, you can run them. If not, God bless everyone.
You know, it's been a good time. I can't believe the detox is already here again. And what detox number is that going to be for you?
Be 42.
Detox number 42.
42.
So you're supposed to detox 42 days. This is like your golden detox.
Yeah, this is like golden detox, and we and then also it's going to be golden detox 2021 because it's a 21-day detox and it's
in
2021. So that was something Megan brought up to my attention yesterday. So yeah, so totally rad.
Did you plan this
years
ago?
I must have known.
20 years ago, whenever your first detox was.
I have known. How exciting is that, Gardy? So yeah, so number 42, great way to purge the liver of trash, the bowels of trash, the kidneys, upregulate the tissues, just get back to good, clean living and good, clean eating. So God bless you guys. Y'all have a lovely, wonderful afternoon, and we will check you guys next week. Merry Christmas.
It's KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM. Coming up next is Building 429. Listen to the sound. All right, Facebook, hey, y'all be blessed. Share this out. Don't forget, the first 5 minutes or so does not quite have audio on this stream. So what you want to do whenever you share this is say, hey, skip ahead 5 minutes. All right.